Good afternoon. I'm Dara Bunjon. I'm the food enthusiast here at J More Living. I'm a food writer, food stylist, PR maven, and a frustrated baker. Those of you joining us live, drop your questions and comments into the comment box, and I will check from time to time. Today's guest, aka the Hungover Gourmet, Dan Taylor, is the editor and publisher of the zine, Z-I-N-E, the Hungover Gourmet, the journal of food, drink, travel, and fun. Baltimore City's paper Best Zine Award winner. In the early 1990s, he started a food and drink column under the same name that grew into its own publication. THG, as Dan likes to call it, lasted for 11 issues over 12 years, when in 2009, the zine went on hiatus when Dan married and became a dad. THG is back with its trademark blend of food and drink commentary with a personal touch, mixed with a side of pop culture. Let's bring in Dan.
Hey, Dara.
Hi, good to see you.
Good to see you
Just,
too.
just to tell people, we go way, way back when
Yes, we do.
blogs started. So that
Yep.
that was a number of years ago.
Well, I was
So,
going to say, I think my daughter Ryan was still in the little, bucket carrier at the time. So she's going to be 17 in June. So we're talking 15, 16 years ago.
years ago, right? Absolutely. What's on your plate today other than doing the show?
Well, I did make an appearance at the office for my regular 9 to 5 job and did that, and then made made tracks, got out of the office, come here and do the interview, and then I think it's off to the driving range and do some errands. My wife's mom is coming in for a visit, so going to be doing some shopping and stocking up, and just looking forward to seeing her.
Okay, are you going to be cooking any special meals?
I don't know. She's more of a person who likes to kind of like have a meal during the day and then snack at night. So I'm more of like the come home and cook dinner type. So I don't know. I don't know if we have any big meals planned or if we're going to be eating out and then snacking at home.
Well, that's an age thing. It comes with you can't eat past a certain hour because at our age you get acid reflux. So henceforth, a big meal in the middle of the day.
Okay.
But I'm sure people are excited to hear about that. Um, Let me ask you, why the 15-year gap from issue 11 to issue 12? I'm going to hold it up here.
There it
And
is.
you see, because I have things for notes to swing around and chat to you about.
Uh,
Um,
it was one of those things where my daughter was born in 2007, and I put out that issue 11, and I was working from home. My wife worked at that time in television news, and then she's gone on to another job. Um, but I was working from home. I was running my own business, raising my daughter, and I thought, well, it's probably a good time to put her on hiatus. Maybe I don't know that I ever thought I'd come back to it. I just sort of put it aside. That was going to be the final issue. And in retrospect, that was probably a stupid kind of thing to do because the adventure of raising a daughter and being a work at home dad, and I was running a graphic design business and then also running an e-commerce website and also selling eBay on the side and doing freelance writing. So quite honestly, I probably should have kept it going because it was kind of a fun adventure over all those years. Um, but I always kept my hand in writing. I'm also a big film fan, so I was writing about film for different blogs, and even brought my original Hungover Gourmet is actually my second zine that I ever launched. I started a zine in the 1980s with a good friend of mine that we covered basically drive-in movies and the trashy horror and action movies we were renting on VHS at the time. And I did that for like 43 issues over like 10 years, and sort of got the itch again to write. And so I published a couple issues of that zine and had fun, but sort of burn out from doing it. And, I was doing everything on myself, and the final issue ended up being almost it was like 130 pages or something like that, and I just got burnt out.
Oh, I've got the wrong one. Here we
Okay,
go.
great.
That's the final issue,
That was the
which
final issue of Hungover Gourmet. And so, I did a couple issues of my other zine called Exploitation Retrospect, and had fun doing it, and missed publishing a little bit, but not enough to really get back into it. And then a friend of mine, Pat Tandy, who is also a Baltimore resident and publishes a zine called Beach Badge, which is devoted to our mutual love of the Jersey Shore. And so he takes contributions, nonfiction, fiction, poetry, a little bit of everything about the Jersey Shore. And I started writing for Beach Badge, and it really clicked with me because it was the same vibe I had when I was writing Hungover Gourmet, which was, it was food, it was drink, it was popular culture, it was personal observations, it was reminiscing about things. And so I really enjoyed writing about it again. And so he and I would talk, and we would go to the movies, or we'd go see a band, and we'd be chatting in the car on the way back, and kind of realized that it was definitely a time when I wanted to scratch that itch again and put out a new issue. And the response from everybody was fantastic. So, like you said, here it is.
here it is, and it's available for
We're
people.
back after our 15-year hiatus, and my daughter even wrote a piece of poetry for it. So she went from being a 2-year-old who was kind of on the sidelines to a 17-year-old who's writing poetry for
Writing poetry,
crazy good.
absolutely. Explain to people, because I really didn't understand, because you would say zines, there's magazines.
Mhm.
What is a zine?
So zine is a shortened version of fanzine. So these were bigger in like the 1930s, 1940s, 1950s, where there would be these fan publications, whether they were devoted to a particular person, like there's an Errol Flynn fanzine, and all the it goes out to the members of the Errol Flynn fan club, or someone who was particularly a fan of science fiction or horror, whether it be film or in literature. And so they were really big, and it was a way for people to build communities, long before the internet. And you would get these people who were putting out these self publications. I got into it kind of on the back end of its popularity in the 1980s, when there was a real big explosion of film fanzines or film zines, and I wasn't even really aware that these things existed until I read about them in Film Comment magazine. And that was sort of what spurred my interest in doing one. And I was going to Drexel University at the time. And one of our requirements as a freshman at Drexel was we had to buy a Macintosh. And it was actually the first of the Apple Macintoshes. I don't know if you remember the famous 1984 Orwell commercial where the woman runs through with the sledgehammer and breaks the screen. That was the commercial that launched the Macintosh. And so as soon as I got my hands on a rudimentary desktop publishing program, that was sort of my entree into doing self-publishing, which then has turned into basically a career, because I now work as the vice president of communications for a local firm, and do all of the layouts of all of the publications that come out of our offices. And I've been doing that since the late 1980s.
I want to tell people, everything we're talking about is accessible from the website, The Hungover Gourmet. Now explain yourself. How did the title Hungover Gourmet come about?
Well, it's one of those things where it's like you pick out a name when you're in college, and it's catchy and memorable, and people like it, and then you're stuck with it for a long time. It actually came from, I don't know if you remember the show The Frugal Gourmet, Jeff Smith.
Sure.
It was on PBS. I was a huge fan, loved his show. And one day, my roommates and I and my brother happened to be in town, and it was a Saturday morning, and we were recovering from a adventurous Friday night, feeling a little rough, and watching the Frugal Gourmet. And so I started kind of making up this Saturday Night Live sketch called the Hungover Gourmet, in which the replaced Jeff Smith with a hungover college student. And so that's sort of, for whatever reason, when I decided to start doing the food and drink column in my other zine, that was the name I went with, and it just kind of proved very popular, and I'm stuck with it.
It's the magazine is all contributory.
Mm-hmm.
We talked for a moment before the show that it was 15 years ago that I wrote an article for your last issue, which was about coffee, and I was the anti-coffee person. I noticed on your website that you actually have a list of hangover cures. Am I correct?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's one of the most popular pages on the website.
So everybody should peruse it. But you're a storyteller, and that's sort of what I am. I'm not a journalist. I have a story about this or a story about that, or I'm contemplating a story about the summer of '68 in Atlantic City, which now brings me to Taylor pork rolls. And there's a discussion. You're a Philly boy, and Taylor pork rolls were all through Jersey, the Jersey Shore, and Philly, and the famous cheesesteak from Philly. Which one's the winner? The issue has a lot about cheesesteaks.
Which do I prefer?
Yeah.
Oh, I grew up eating a lot of both, but if you give me the choice, a good pork roll, egg and cheese on a hard Kaiser roll is going to edge out a cheesesteak for me. I'm actually a bigger fan of the Italian roast pork sandwiches in Philly than even a cheesesteak, but that's a story for another time. But yeah,
another issue.
Another issue. Well, in fact, this past weekend was Mother's Day, and my wife, Chris, who you've met, Chris and I grew up in South Jersey. She's a Jersey girl. She's a Jersey Shore girl. And when I asked her what she wanted for Mother's Day brunch, her answer was South Jersey Eggs Benedict, which is Eggs Benedict, except you put pork roll in instead of Canadian bacon. So we had South Jersey Eggs Benedict. Chris and my daughter were overjoyed. And we also had 2 pieces of pork roll left over. So I made pork roll fried rice. So that was delicious.
Yeah. Have a question in here. What is your all-time favorite comfort food? Hangover not required.
Oh, meatloaf. Meatloaf is my comfort food. We had meatloaf at our wedding. That's how much I love meat. And it was back in my college and post-college days, we would go to a place called the Oakland Diner in Oakland, New Jersey. And they had a meatloaf platter that came with mashed potatoes and gravy. And that was like my cure-all. That was what made everything right again.
Were you put ketchup on meatloaf or no red sauce?
I will do ketchup. I'll do ketchup on meatloaf. I'll do ketchup on scrambled eggs. I'll even do ketchup on a cheesesteak every now and then. But usually sans ketchup.
Sans. Okay. We just wanted to clear the decks on that. The next issue, if we have writers out there, and I'm contemplating, is about supermarkets. So if you have any memories about supermarkets growing up or your whatever supermarkets.
Yeah, supermarkets, it's one of those things where love them or hate them, everybody kind of has to do it. I love shopping. I love going to the grocery store. I love seeing new products. I love the way stores are laid out. I've become a huge Aldi fan. I used to shop at other bigger grocery stores, but then
I'm with you with Aldi. Yeah.
Oh, love it. And I've my friends joke because they say that I've become like this Aldi evangelist. And I've converted a few people. Our neighborhood started a neighborhood happy hour back when the pandemic started, just as a way of getting out of the house, everybody getting together, blowing off steam after the week, kind of cooped up doing stuff on Zoom or in your own house. And 4 years later, it's still going strong. We get together every Friday night, And what started as, hey, here's a bowl of popcorn, here's some peanuts, whatever. We now have like these full blown spreads that take up like a 6 foot folding table in whoever's garage we're holding happy hour out that week. And, it's a great place. Like I'll go and I'll get flatbreads from Aldi, or I'll get, some kind of frozen treat, like the frozen strudel, or something like that. And so then I have friends who are Costco shoppers. I have friends who are Lidl or Little. I'm not sure how you say it.
Yeah.
So now it's become like this kind of taste test of all the different appetizers from all the different stores around. So yeah, I'm a big Aldi fan, but I like I said, I love grocery shopping. So I'm always curious to see what other people feel like about groceries. Because I mean, you wrote the anti-coffee piece for the last issue. I'm sure that there will be somebody who writes an anti grocery store, or how much they hate grocery shopping, whatever. For the new issue, at least I'm hoping they will.
Yeah. The I'm just watching if anything else is popping up, if you see me turn my head. I will tell you something. I shouldn't get it because I've been very bad about my sugar. But Aldi's has chocolate covered caramels with sea salt. That is really good at a cost effective price. And I will tell people that Aldi's, their dozen eggs are not going to cost you what it costs even anywhere else. And I will sit there and say Lidl is not cheaper, but Lidl has a bakery and they do Portuguese tarts there that you can't get anywhere else. So I watch every Wednesday. I compare. I'll tell you what's on sale where. And if people follow me on Facebook, when lobster goes on sale, it gets posted as well.
I was just about to say that. That's you are my lobster connection for when ShopRite has the $5 lobster tails.
Yeah. And the whole lobsters right now they're $19.99, and every birthday, which is coming up Sunday, I go and buy myself a lobster. But come probably 4th of July, they'll be on sale again, so you can expect that.
We had lobster tails with our Mother's Day dinner. I made ribeyes and lobster tails.
Well, just call me a mother and I'll be there. There's so much humor and wry thoughts in these articles. I mean, you got to get past, TikTok's 15-second thing and read some of these. I like that you did Cooking Up a Crime. Now that seems to be that's going to be a regular column.
Yeah, I think so, because so when the pandemic started and we were looking for things to watch, we would just sit down as a family and we would binge, an evening of Columbo or Alfred Hitchcock Presents, Murder, She Wrote, whatever. And I noticed this pattern. I was like, well, every season of Murder, She Wrote has 1 or 2 episodes where someone is being poisoned by arsenic, or there's a crime being committed at a winery. Columbo has some famous episodes that are involved with food. Lots of Alfred Hitchcock Presents. So,
Right.
I started going down this rabbit hole of these TV shows that have, the crimes. And then that led me into, well, how many people actually have been poisoned by arsenic? Like, if you watch TV from that era, it seems like it was this epidemic of arsenic poisonings. So I started going through and finding all of these people who had either actually, poisoned people with arsenic, or there was one chef who killed his wife over an argument and then basically cooked her body down. Not to get all gross on the podcast, but cooked her body down and then kind of disposed it with the kitchen waste. So it was kind of a fascinating blend of real crime and real crime.
I remember.
But yeah, there's tons of examples out there.
I can't remember. It might have been an Alfred Hitchcock. It was more or whatever. The they couldn't find the murder weapon, and the woman had killed the husband with a frozen leg of lamb, and then she cooked it, so it was
Yep.
gone. I can't remember whose
That,
that was.
I think
Uh,
that was Alfred I think that's Alfred Hitchcock Presents. Yes. But yeah, so and like you said, I mean, I'm a pop culture fan. I love TV and film. So uh, I wanted to make the publication, it's food focused, but it's not just cooking, it's not recipes, it's not just any of those things. It's more, there's a personal touch. One of my friends wrote about cooking along with Vincent Price.
I
Vincent
saw.
Price was not just a famous horror actor or actor, period, but he was also quite the gourmet, and he published a lot of books. And so one of my friends wrote about cooking from his treasury of recipes and meeting Vincent Price's daughter, and he's a fellow horror fan. And so that was a great personal story that had the pop culture touchstones, but also the food and drink elements to it. So that's what I'm really trying to do with the zine going forward is, just keep it in that vein, but
Right.
also branch out to, books. I'm reading a James Patterson book called The Chef, which is about a New Orleans police officer who also he moonlights as a food truck operator, and he gets called in by the federal government to help a terrorist attack. So I'm reading that now, and that'll be reviewed in the next issue. So it's just fun.
Okay. So it's not horror, um, but I watched with my friend um, the movie The Taste of Things. Have you heard of that?
I have heard of it, but I haven't had a chance to see it yet.
It is set in 1885, starring Juliette Binoche and Benoit Magimel. I'm not pronouncing it right. Follows the romance between a well-regarded cook and the gourmet she spent more than 20 years working for. Yes, it is a little bit there's a romance in there, but it's more about the food and the presentation. And if people thought Babette's Feast was fabulous, this goes beyond. Actually, one of the scenes of them fixing the ortolan birds, the ones where they eat in one bite, that's outlawed now because they're almost extinct. So it's a recommendation to people it's now streaming. It's not on Netflix, but you can get it through YouTube. You can get it through whatever, $4 or $5. Watch it. And
Yeah,
you walk away hungry, but it's just gorgeous. It's gorgeous. Um, you have an obsession with hot dogs, don't you?
I love hot dogs. I can't help myself.
Is there a particular brand? I know you have hot dog socks.
I do. I like the Nathan's hot dogs, and I love the Hebrew National with that are reduced fat, so I don't have to feel quite so bad about eating them. But I will tell you that one of the best hot dogs I've ever had was at Camden Yards. We went to see the Phillies and the Orioles play. This is probably, it's got to be 6 or 8 years ago, because Ryan was pretty little, and it was like the middle of the summer, and it was blistering hot out. It was so hot that they were giving out cups of ice as you walked in the gates of the stadium. That's how hot it was. And unfortunately, we had great seats, but they were not under cover. So it was just, the sun was just beating down on us. So we decided eventually to just go walk around the concourse, go hang out in the outfield. Ryan, of course, wanted ice cream. And so there's a hot dog stand at Camden Yards, and they serve a hot dog topped with mac and cheese and lump crab. And it's one of the best things I've ever had, but it was literally like 106 degrees that day. And I was walking around the concourse eating it, and I had like a half a dozen people come up to me and ask if it was really what they thought it was. Like people were like, "Is that really a hot dog covered in macaroni and cheese and crab meat?" And but I think they still sell it too.
Well, I know you're hitting all the right marks for Jeffrey Spear, who's on here commenting, because he's a hot dog fanatic, and now that
Ah,
he and mac and cheese, and now when he comes to Baltimore, it's like we got to go find it. Um,
absolutely.
he's asking, are there any culinary novels you consistently recommend as must read?
Mm. I can't say that there are. Like I'm not. I don't like the cozies. You know, I know that's big these days. The mysteries that are centered around, you know, the woman runs a bake shop and there's always a murder in her small town. I don't really get into those, so I can't say novel wise off the top of my head that there is. You know, I really enjoyed a lot of the Anthony Bourdain books, but you know, I'm actually more interested in people's like memories and observations than novels.
Okay. The I'm trying to get this together. Do you still run the eBay business anymore?
I do. I do. I've been selling online for over 25 years.
Now you have a collection because you're very retro. Your Instagram has a lot of retro recipes on it. What was it? A recipe for clam balls and smoked turkey fingers. So,
Yes. Yes.
so
Yeah, I have a huge my wife and I before our daughter was born, we spent a lot of time going to flea markets and yard sales and estate sales. And one of the things that we both loved was we both loved vintage cookbooks and vintage recipes. So, you know, we would go to these sales and someone would have a box of them and we would just be like, would you take $10 for the whole box rather than, you know, picking out two or
right,
three of them? So we have oodles and oodles. And I mean, we have thousands of advertising pamphlets and from whether it's Kraft, Heinz, uh, canning companies, the pickle commission, all of the cookbooks that they put out during World War II about how to make your grocery bill stretch. So yeah, I love retro recipes. I love retro advertising recipes. In fact, there was one that came up on Facebook today. It wasn't one of mine, but it was a Philadelphia cream cheese recipe, and it was their Philly 5 o'clock dip. And we were trying to figure out one of the ingredients was a tablespoon of meat sauce. And we were trying to figure out like, did they mean literally like Sunday gravy, like a tablespoon of meat and tomato sauce? Because it was just, I mean, it was literally like a cream cheese, sour cream and cream cheese dip. So we couldn't figure out if there was something that was called meat sauce. You know, back it was probably a recipe from the '60s. Um, but yeah, it was very odd. But I love like looking at those and seeing how they try and incorporate the ingredient that they're advertising into whatever the recipe is. And I feel bad for the poor people in the test kitchens who had to try some of this stuff.
well, going back to the Vincent Price story, because the fellow who wrote the article, this is how he chose to start cooking. And there was something that it said salad dressing,
Salad dressing,
but
right?
he had to go back to that era to find out what, and it was British because Vincent
Hmm.
Price's cookbook was in England. So he had to do the research on what he came up with. So,
Yeah,
you
and
know,
I think that's kind of the fun of it. It's you know you become like this culinary detective. Well, what did they mean by that? And you know, and we always joke about when the recipe has 1/8 of a teaspoon of paprika in it. Like why bother? Um, so yeah, it was an interesting time, but they're fascinating. Those recipe books are I could look at them for hours.
right. And I, um, I know you know her. She's here in Baltimore, and she's archived all these old
Oh yeah,
recipes.
yeah. Old line plate. Yeah.
Old
Yep.
Line Plate, and
Kara.
she's been on the show.
Yep.
I
Yeah.
I
I've actually sold some cookbooks to Kara along the way.
um I had a big yard sale at my house, but I didn't really have a lot of cookbooks up for sale. You probably should have jumped. There were people that I actually had somebody buy my entire cookbook collection.
Did you really?
Yes, except I said I get to pick out 10 books.
Huh.
He started off with $1 book. I said, no, that's not happening. So we went to $2 a book. It was 300 cookbooks. I would never, ever recoup what I
Right.
had.
Oh gosh, no.
And I had to get out of the house. But you helped me out with the yard sale. You probably had first picks of things there. I think I had.
Yeah. Your husband had he and I had somewhat similar tastes in movies, so there were some VHS tapes of some horror films and things like that were great, and some CDs too. I think, yeah.
Yeah, that was a big, that was a hot day. Thank you.
It
You
was.
really,
It was a hot day.
it was brutal, but it was probably the biggest yard sale I had. I mean, I just had to clear stuff out. Um, Synopsis. I mean, we could probably talk forever. Um, so let me just refresh for people. The website, thehungovergourmet.com, will lead to his blog. His Instagram is just Hungover Gourmet. Forget the.
Right, and actually, the website is just hungovergourmet.com.
Oh, is it? Why do
Mhm.
I? Oh, it is. I'm sorry,
That's
folks.
right. Yep.
But all the information has come up here. And as I told you, Dan, I always screw up at least once or twice.
Well,
So,
that's okay because you told me that I misspelled your last name in issue 11, so now we're even.
okay, the slate is clean. Look, I'm so used to my name being misspelled, or I get letters. It says Dear Bun, and the last name is John. We can talk forever, but I know you need to get on the golf course because it's going to rain tomorrow.
Oh, don't say that. No, don't say that.
No, I think Friday's okay. It's
Yeah, I think it's Saturday.
Saturday's it's going to rain.
Yeah.
Okay. One of the, oh, I got a kick out of, there was an article in this about it's a writer, and she talked about the 10 things, the 10 phases of writing a book, which all tied in with what she ate and drank and
Mhm.
whatever. And there was one where and it was me all over again. She says, putting my spoon into the can of icing. Many a time,
Yep.
many a time.
Yep. That's my good friend Davita, and
Yeah.
she wrote her first novel. Came out a couple years ago, and so we did an interview, and then she did the sidebar about the things that she ate and drank during the stages of starting the novel and then actually publishing the novel.
Yeah, one day I'll get this Atlantic City story done, which it goes back to the summer of '68. All right, so let's wrap up. You know the final questions are coming.
I do.
Okay, if you wake up tomorrow with a new talent, what would the new talent be?
I'm a frustrated musician. I love music. I was a college radio DJ. I was a freelance music critic. So I've always wanted to learn to play the guitar. My brother was an awesome guitar player. I think that would be the one thing I would want to wake up and be able to do.
Okay. If you can go back and give your 18-year-old self a piece of advice, what would it be?
Uh, kind of a multi-tiered thing. I would tell myself to have more self-confidence, to be comfortable in my own skin, and also to ask out the cute girl from my economics class who I later married, and is my wonderful wife, Christine.
Oh, how sweet. Is this advice something that you've imparted onto your daughter, Ryan?
I probably would, except she is already so self-confident that I don't know that I need to. She has gone from being a member of the stage crew at her school to being one of the featured performers in the musicals and the plays. She's just a wonderful kid and has a lot of confidence, and she's going to go on to do great things.
Terrific. All right, so we know you cook. What was your ultimate culinary fail or your funny food story about
Uh,
cooking?
that goes back to being at home with Ryan. She loves my wife's meatloaf, and I don't know why I decided that I was going to try and make meatloaf for her, but I decided that, well, kids love jelly and sweet things, so I looked it up and I was like, oh, I'm going to make a meatloaf that has jelly in it, and this is going to be a surefire winner, and she's going to love Dad's meatloaf. And she was like, what did you do? Why would you do this? So yeah, that I mean, I don't I try to I'm pretty comfortable in my wheelhouse of what I make. I don't stray too far. Tend to I tend to cook a number of things pretty well, and I try and stay in my lane. I don't venture too far out. But that was one where I was like, that was a big mistake.
Okay, all right. What's the best bite you've had all week? But I think we might know it already.
Well, see, now I purposely held something back because I knew that this was coming. Um,
Okay.
because once I got back into the working world, I started doing a lot more meal prep. So on Sundays, I'll prep a breakfast for the week. I'll prep a lunch for the week for Chris and I to share. And the one thing that I've been making that she and I are both, we can't quit, is I make this spinach and sausage crustless quiche that is just dynamite. It comes from I don't know if you're familiar with Skinny Taste, but it's one of the Skinny Taste recipes, and it's so good. It's just turkey sausage, spinach, eggs half and half, milk, salt, pepper, and then usually we use like either Swiss or Gruyere, and we eat it all week for breakfast, and it's just fabulous. And the other thing I will say, and this will kind of go back to our supermarket talk, I was in the grocery store yesterday, and the Old Bay flavored goldfish are back, and
They're
those
so good.
they're so good.
So good. I was it a regular store? Was it? It
I was
wasn't Aldi.
It was actually giant, yeah. So get them while they're out because we're already finished our first bag, so I'll be getting more.
Oh God, I have to get out. Maybe that's what I'll do after the show. Whatever. So, okay, best bite all week. What didn't I ask you that I probably should have?
I had jotted some things down, and I was like, wow, man, cheesesteaks, or do I say pork roll, or do I say Taylor ham? But I would say that you didn't ask me what my favorite cheesesteak was in Philadelphia, and that's John's Roast Pork in South Philly. Not only is the best cheesesteak in Philly, but it's probably also one of the best roast pork sandwiches in Philly. Although you can't go wrong with Dinick's in Reading Terminal Market.
Okay, everybody, mark it down. And there are reviews of restaurants in every one of these Hungover Gourmet. So yours will not come with the pink flippy on them.
But it will come with a cool sticker.
Okay, all right. Dan, a pleasure as always. Good to reconnect, and I will keep on the loop on the lobster sales.
Definitely.
And should I come across any antique cookbooks, I will keep you in mind. Thank
Absolutely.
you. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for joining us.
Thanks. It was a pleasure.
All righty. Okay, everyone, just to tell you a little bit about next week's guest is Sarah Poland. She's the CEO and co-founder of Supergirl. Sarah is a former stand-up comic turned entrepreneur. It was the corrupt food system that started Sarah on the path to creating fresh soups that are vegan and kosher in stores like Costco, Whole Foods, Kroger, and available online. You can read more at the Supergirl, that's supergirl.com. food@jmoreliving.com. If you need to reach me, you can reach me at food@jmoreliving.com or Instagram at Dara Cooks or on Facebook, The Food Enthusiast. All shows are immediately archived in video form on JMOR's Facebook page and jmoreliving.com. We truly appreciate it when you share our show with friends and family. May your plates always, always remain full. Thank you for tuning in. I hope to see you next Thursday.